Episode 22 of the Average Joe Sports Show. What a week when it comes to quarterbacks.
Mitch Sherman here. Let's go deep into the Dylan Raiola story and all of its twists and turns.
Hi, it's Bill Doleman. The Dylan and Arch era has begun in football.
It's Elijah Herbel here. It's not all quarterbacks this week as Husker Volleyball. They hit Tampa for the Final Four. We'll discuss that to close the show.
Welcome to it. It's the Average Joe Sports Show, episode 22. Be sure to give us a follow and subscribe on YouTube, the AJ Sports Show. On Twitter, the AJ Sports Pod. Mitch Sherman, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Guys, how's the week been right in front of signing day? Calm and cool? Anything but when it comes to Nebraska football.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Nebraska put out its senior awards today, so we got to find out about Nick Henrich and Luke Reimer winning some awards. That seems to be the big news of the week, right?
Let's break that down.
Yes.
Yeah. Take some calls on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Take
really
your
excited
emails.
about that.
It does seem to be a week, though, where 24 hours in a day is just not enough, right?
Well, there's no question that once again, Nebraska has defended its title as the reigning offseason champions, without question. No program in the country has this kind of drama offseason after offseason after offseason than Nebraska. So
the champions in terms of drama, yes, they're still waiting to win the title to bring home the trophy. They have to collect on what's in front of them.
I just wish that they had that signing day was not in December. I think I would rather have it go on into February as being the only signing day. Let's just keep this thing going. All the drama of the last, year or two, let's just keep it going another couple of months.
I miss the one singular signing day. I remember my dad calling me out of school on occasional signing days whenever there was drama expected for Nebraska. And I'd be begging him, Dad, I can't go to school today. I need to know what happens with Rex Burkhead or name. I know Rex Burkhead wasn't a signing day flip, but there used to be drama on signing day, and something tells me we'll get some
Dan
drama
Bealey
next week.
Walderup.
But, it just doesn't compare to that February signing day when it's everything, all the marbles. And it's also changed the recruitment of high schoolers a bit as well whenever it becomes this senior year. Now you have 2 weeks to commit. But alas, the drama persists.
There's way too much that goes on in the month of December now with the transfer portal and signing day and the coaching carousel. And imagine next year when we're playing the early rounds, the quarterfinal rounds, the round of 12 of the college football playoff at this time. It's going to be untenable. You legitimately cannot have a situation where the college football playoff involving 12 teams is coinciding with the transfer portal craziness, with the drama before signing day and the coaching carousel. Something is going to have to move out of the month of December, and it's not going to be the playoff. It's not going to be the coaching carousel. So that leaves portal and recruiting. And do you move it up? You can't move the portal up. So do you move recruiting up? Do you move recruiting back? I mean, recruiting and having a signing period in August or June is not completely unreasonable, but you can't stick it in December when everything else is going on.
Well, the problem being so many kids now want to be early enrollees and get their foot in the door in the spring that you can't just have one in February, Mitch, as you kind of say.
Well,
late June or early July feels just super early, but it could work. But then you worry about the kids that sign the dotted line, make it through their senior year. And as Matt Rhule says, you have the late bloomers out there who are now saying, well, my recruitment's picked up, but I've already signed on the dotted line, and now I need to get a release from that. And there doesn't seem to be a good answer.
Well, it would make schools be a little more honest with themselves about who they're taking commitments from in the summer and in the month of June. Because if you know they're going to sign right then in the summer, they may not be quite so free with the offers, and group Nebraska into this category too, because Nebraska here toward the end, especially with the prospect, the specter of Dylan Raiola. Is that the first time we've said his name 4 minutes into this podcast? We need to start over. What did we do?
It's been intimated, okay?
Yes.
But especially with the specter of him joining the class, there are other players out there who Nebraska could potentially get back in with. And you're seeing some recruits who committed either in the fall or back in the summer who are jumping off, and they're being pushed off, I guess is a better way to describe it. So you lose the ability to do that if the signing period is in the summer and they've already signed that letter of intent. I don't think it would be entirely impossible to do it in January. You could still have early enrollees. They just wouldn't sign the letter of intent. They'd sign a scholarship paper like a transfer does, and then come in. And once they go to school, then it's binding. And you could have them sign the letter of intent when the signing day comes if there's a need for that. But the national letter of intent is just kind of out there to protect the student athlete. And now with everything else that they get as far as NIL, and if they're in school anyway, then some of those protections are unnecessary. There's got to be a way, though, to change what's happening, because I don't want to be a part of a December next year with a 12-team playoff and all of this, too.
I think we need to get like a blue ribbon panel of university presidents and administrators together to solve the problem. And perhaps Mark Emmert, former president of the NCAA, could chair this committee and put everything together that would solve all the problems for collegiate athletics and specifically college football. I think that would be a brilliant idea, and I'm sure they could probably get something put in place by, say, 2031.
Well, there's plenty of time to kick it around.
Just go committee on us.
Yeah. Hey, drop Mark Emmert on there, too.
We need another
this college
committee.
Football landscape. No.
Let's dive into Nebraska's quarterback room and the present, the past, and the future. And Mitch, will start with Monday and Kyle McCord's visit. Spent a couple of days here, and then late yesterday, you had the news that the Kyle McCord's going to keep his options open. One of those options, as we talk, not Nebraska.
Yeah, right as Kyle McCord was going into a meeting with 1890 on Monday, Nebraska's collective, on Monday late afternoon, the bombshell dropped that the Huskers were back in play for Dylan Raiola, the number one. He's a 5-star quarterback. Everybody knows Dylan Raiola's name. He's been on Nebraska's radar since June of 2021 when he showed up for a Friday Night Lights camp with his dad, Dominic, and looked like, pick your NFL quarterback who was out there from the 50-yard. I was there. I was sitting in the stands, in the west stands under the press box. It was a nice night. And then Dylan started throwing the ball, and it's like, who is that? And you find out he's a freshman from Texas who's never played a snap or had never started a game of high school football. Obviously the name Raiola is well known, and the legend kind of grew from there. So commits to Ohio State, commits to Georgia. Now he's back in play for Nebraska after this incredible 24 months. Or 30 months that it's been with him on the radar. That news drops right as the McCord deal is being hammered out, and it led to just some wild times, and that all ended, or at least the McCord part of it ended, as you said, Schmidt, on Wednesday when he is no longer in the picture with Nebraska. So interpret that as you wish, but I think the main takeaway for us to respond to is that it's just not real feasible to have two former 5-star, one current and one former 5-star quarterbacks who are walking into the same room as newcomers, even if one is a senior and one is a freshman in the month of January at any school, let alone a school like Nebraska that hasn't had a winning season in 7 years. If this was Alabama, maybe it's different, but I tend to think that it's not even different there.
Well, what about Texas in that mix, though? Along with what you're saying, you've got Quinn Ewers and you had Malik Murphy, who has now put his name into the transfer portal, and Arch Manning a year ago pledges allegiance to Texas.
5 stars at Texas, right. Yeah. You see how that's working out now with one of those guys going into the portal as his team's getting ready to play in the college football playoff. I mean, that's what a rough deal for Malik Murphy. He contributed to this Texas team. Ewers was hurt at times this year, and Murphy had to step in and be the backup. And helped keep Texas on track for this college football playoff. And now, just because of the ridiculous nature of this calendar that we just talked about a few minutes ago, the portal closes before the college football playoff final. Now, he could stay in on New Year's Day, and then if Texas loses or if Texas wins, go ahead and jump in the portal right after that. And you don't have to sign on with a new team by the time those portal doors close. You just have to enter the portal. So I don't know why Malik Murphy didn't wait until after New Year's Day. Probably because he just wants to get this done, and he wants to be able to find the right place for him. And that school could take a quarterback if he waits until January 2nd. So it's tough. And Texas's situation, Bill, not that we're going to talk all about Texas here, but it's unique because Arch Manning is unique. Arch Manning's not Dylan Raiola. He's not a normal 5-star quarterback, and he was willing to come in and be the third string quarterback in his first year. You're not going to find a lot of guys in that spot.
Well, we're talking the quarterback situation at Nebraska. Let's focus in on Dylan Raiola. Official visit this weekend. Mitch, you've tracked the past, as you said, 30 months. Bill, you've had your eye on it. You and me, Elijah, have been tracking this as well. And let's talk about the tea leaves, or where things can go as we project this weekend for Dylan in Nebraska and beyond, with signing day coming up on Wednesday. What a get for Nebraska should this proceed in Nebraska's favor. And let's just touch on, Mitch, from your coverage and just what you know about his skill set. You laid out the wow factor, seeing him the first time as a high school freshman, and the fact Nebraska's just kind of stayed in this. We'll also get into Danny Kaelin, the standout from Bell West, and his future as well. But, what a good opportunity here for Nebraska. And right now, if you're Matt Rhule and company, you got to settle on somebody to add to that quarterback room. That somebody could be, a legacy that could flip the program.
Yeah. Where to start here? I think that it would be catastrophic at this. It would take something catastrophic at this point for Nebraska not to sign Dylan Raiola on Wednesday of next week. But this has always been a fluid situation. Even when the Raiolas moved to Buford, Georgia, outside of Atlanta, just an hour away from Athens, and for almost all prospects at that point, the door's shut, it's locked, and the keys thrown away. You're signed and sealed for the school, especially when it's Georgia, two-time defending national champ. But one thing about the Raiolas is that they're different with their ability to be mobile, and that didn't necessarily mean anything other than that they wanted him close to Athens, so it was easy for him to get back and forth. Clearly they're not going to be locked into anything until they absolutely have to, and I think that has to be considered as he comes on this visit this week. Nebraska's got to close this. They may fully intend, and by all accounts, by all appearances, do fully intend for Dylan to be a part of this Nebraska class, but he's coming on a visit for a reason. If it was all just completely settled, you could stay home in Georgia this weekend and just plan to sign the papers on Wednesday. So he's coming in. He wants to see it, wants to take his OV, and let's hope for Nebraska's sake that he has an enjoyable weekend. And I would think he will. I mean, they know how to do this. They know how to roll out the red carpet. It's not the first time. It's, in fact, the 8th time that Dylan Raiola has been to Nebraska for something like this. Just this is the one that where all expenses are paid, and it'll probably be the most lavish and excessive of all of his visits.
It is somewhat amusing that he's taking a visit to Nebraska when there have been 3 or 4 where Nebraska fans have been chronicling every move that he has made, especially that one back in March. Remember the baseball game? And I think there was the time at the basketball game. And it seems like, hasn't he already officially sort of stopped by at least a couple of other times? The thing about it is that stands out to me, though, is, well, there are many things. But if, let's say, it's not in the cards for Nebraska to sign him, okay, how does he then go back to Georgia when Georgia has, what appears to be a very, very good class? They have other quarterbacks, and for them to say, well, we just wanted to check it out, but, we're going to sign on the dotted line anyway, which is their right to do, and that would be great. And he would be a great Georgia Bulldog, let's face it. But how accepting, will Georgia fans be, right? Nebraska fans have been spurned once before when he made the decision, and now they're opening the arms back up for him to come and visit Lincoln once again. Georgia fans, I'm not sure that would be all that welcoming.
Well, on the flip side of that, Bill, after a saga like this week, how does Nebraska go back to Daniel Kalen if Dylan Raiola doesn't sign the dotted line? How do you go back to Kyle McCord? It seems that if it's not Nebraska and Dylan Raiola, both Dylan Raiola and Nebraska find themselves in a very, very bad spot come next Wednesday.
Yeah, Nebraska finds itself in a worse spot because Dylan will be able to find a home.
Yeah, there'll be plenty of homes with their door open.
Yeah, and I would think that Georgia would be able to look past this drama of the past week. Yeah, there would be a little bit of trust lost, but that can be forgotten. If it's Nebraska that ends up out in the cold next week, that's a really difficult situation because I don't think you can go back to Kyle McCord at this point.
No.
Could you go back to Daniel Kalen? Absolutely. Would it work out where he ends up signing? I think it probably would. Danny has already kind of conceded once to Dylan when he said, all right, you got the stage. I'm just going to go commit to Missouri and get out of the way. And if things work out at some point where there's an opening, I'll be happy to come back and look. And that's the way it played out. If it happened again, I think he could, knowing his personality, I think he could probably find a way to swallow his pride and do that. It's not, there's a trust issue then probably again, because what if a year from now, Dylan Raiola at Georgia or Alabama or wherever goes into the portal and wants to come to Nebraska, and Daniel Kalen has been in school for a year. Now, look, that's not a scenario that I expect to happen. I think Raiola is going to sign with Nebraska next week, and the bigger question to ask, the more pertinent question to this moment is what's Kalen going to do? Because his scholarship offer stands. Nebraska is not going to turn its back on a local product, Daniel Kalen, who was instrumental in building this class and helping Nebraska create momentum that allowed them to get Isaiah McMorris and Davon Hall, the two wide receivers from his high school, that allowed them to get Carter Nelson and keep Carter Nelson when Notre Dame came calling. And we spent a whole episode talking about Carter Nelson and Notre Dame early this season when he went on a visit there to watch the Fighting Irish play USC,
Ohio State, wasn't it?
Might have been Ohio State.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. And, Kalen and Carter Nelson are close. So Nebraska owes a lot to Danny Kalen and how he helped build this class. The question now is, what's he going to decide to do? So as we tape this episode, he's planning to visit Michigan State this weekend. Now, Michigan State just took a transfer from Oregon State, where Jonathan Smith, the head coach at Michigan State, came from just a few weeks ago. And it's a young quarterback, I believe a year older than Danny Kalen. How does that impact Michigan State's feeling about taking Danny Kalen? There's a lot of questions still to be answered that we just can't get to at this moment. And where Kalen ends up is I think something of great interest at this moment.
And I think we should note, Mitch, you said at the time of recording, let's lay this out, because something tells me by the time this is posted up or people are listening to it, things will have changed in this week-long dramatic saga.
They might change before we're done.
That's very true. Might change before
Phones are on, yes.
It is 2:15 p.m. on Thursday, December 14th. News may break after this. News may break during this show, for all I know. But whenever you're listening to this, things may have changed. That's how fluid this situation is. So let's lay it out. That is what time it is. That is the information that we have at present time at 2:15 on Thursday. Let's just go cards on the table right now so make sure everybody knows and nobody's in our replies come Friday morning or Friday afternoon saying, what are you guys talking about? It's 2:15 on Thursday. We know what we know. We don't know what we don't know.
What I want to know is, all right, say things proceed best case scenario for Nebraska. That best case scenario is Dylan Raiola, and there's a commitment video out over the weekend. Dylan Raiola, his juice brings what to Nebraska's signing day when it comes to some of the other peers. The perception of Nebraska landing a 5-star is big nationally. And then you have the reality of a guy that is good enough to go compete for the starting job, presumably, because a lot of 5-star kids come in and if they don't win the job outright, they get time or at some points, and I'm thinking of the Trevor Lawrences of the world, midway through freshman season, come in and really stabilize an offense. That talent level's not misidentified very often. It's a situation that this quarterback as a freshman walks into. What's the line like? What's the veteran leadership like around him? What are the skills? I mean, we know the math that happens on offense. It's not just the quarterback. But, man, that's the guy that gets the arrows or the praise. So let's talk about Raiola's skill set in reference to this Nebraska offense. And, Rhule's on to year 2, and he needs better quarterback play in year 2 in a really tough Big Ten.
Yeah, a couple things there. One, Dylan Raiola as an 18-year-old is an upgrade over what Nebraska had at quarterback at any moment on the field in 2023. He is refined among players of his age. You compare him to the Kyle McCords of the world, 22, 23-year-olds, and there's going to be some lag in Dylan's progression just because he doesn't have that experience. But the talent level, the raw skills that he has, and really the training that he's received, the experience that he's been around because of his dad's NFL background. Dylan grew up around NFL quarterbacks. Dominic was extremely close with Dan Orlovsky, with John Kitna, with Matthew Stafford, with Drew Stanton, all of whom he snapped the ball to with the Detroit Lions, and they were like uncles to Dylan and his brother Dayton growing up. It was Kitna, in fact, who discovered, I suppose you could say, Dylan's talent as a middle schooler. Dominic thought he was raising linemen like he was, like his brother Donovan was. And when Kitna saw Dylan throw the ball, he said, you've got something special here. And Kitna encouraged Dylan to never take no for an answer, to never let anyone tell him because your name is Raiola that you are anything but a quarterback. And you should go out and you should seek the best training. And Dominic took that to heart. And with the resources that he had, he was able to get Dylan the absolute best training, including work with some of those quarterbacks that I mentioned. He ended up playing for Kitna his first 2 years of high school, and then they moved to Arizona, and all kinds of other opportunities came his way. So this is not a normal true freshman, even a normal 5-star true freshman who would be coming into Nebraska. On top of that, you look at Nebraska's schedule at the start of next season, and if it is Dylan Raiola as the starter week 1, you go UTEP, you go Colorado, you start with a softer portion of the Big Ten than the way the season ends. So it sets up somewhat well for an inexperienced quarterback to take the reins, and you have a defense that we saw this year was a top 20 group with Tony White. Tony White's coming back. Most of his key players are coming back. He should have a defense next year that's even better than the one he put on the field this year. So all of those things play in Nebraska's favor if, in fact, it is set to start a true freshman quarterback next season. It's
worked out for Nebraska a few years ago that a freshman did okay. Took him 6 games to take over the starting job, but Tommy Frazier was all right. And everybody, I think, recognized in Tommy Frazier that there was something different about him in his physical skill set as an option quarterback, but there was something about his mental makeup as a leader that he was different in that regard. He was brash. He was always been brash, but he was confident, supremely confident. And it was a big deal when Tom gave him the keys. Mike Grant had been the starter. I don't remember who the second quarterback was behind. Frankie London? No, that doesn't sound. No, that's not right. But there was another quarterback, and then finally it was a Missouri game where it was okay. will start the kid, but there's just something different about his leadership and command and presence in addition to what he could do with the option. And certainly Dylan Raiola is a different quarterback with his skill set. We've all seen the myriad of highlights by now that people continue to post about Dylan Raiola and the throws that he makes. And occasionally they'll mix in a run. But his skill set is pretty spectacular. And the comparisons will be made probably to Arch Manning and Dylan Raiola for a long time, because both of them certainly have very, very bright futures together as to who was the better, freshman starter in 2024.
Interested to see how
that is if Manning does start, by the way.
Yes.
Viewers may go back to Texas.
Right, and that's interesting because the whole discussion point of getting a portal quarterback was to find an option not only with your current quarterback room, with Chubba, with Heinrich, but do you go get a guy like McCord to come in and be that bridge for a Kalen or a Raiola now, or okay, you have time to groom and grow another season with a guy like Chubba. So I want to go to the bridge portion of this discussion. The risk v. reward of going with a true freshman if he wins the starting job versus the safe, if there is such thing as safe anymore, safe option of a portal quarterback. What was unique about McCord, guys, is his record and what he did at Ohio State. That's what was so intriguing, because you had the dream a week ago for so many, or at the beginning of the week for so many Nebraska fans, where you had a guy in McCord that's done it at a high level, done it in the league you're in, and then you have a guy like Raiola that could get groomed and here you go, take the keys.
Yeah, in my initial reporting on Monday, as all of this came out, and as we said earlier, it was happening simultaneously, the McCord visit and the Raiola news. I thought there was a possibility that they could make it work with both guys. And, we came to realize later on that wasn't reality. And in hindsight, it's understandable why it's played out this way. I don't think there's any question if Rhule had to pick, say, door one is McCord, Kalen, and maybe even another portal quarterback. Like, they could have attempted to get a younger portal quarterback either here in this period in the winter or after spring practice. If, say, Chubba Purdy were to move on because it was apparent that he wasn't going to be the number one guy. If that was door one, and then you take it all away and you say door two is Dylan Raiola, I think Matt Rhule is picking door two. Mm-hmm. And he made that clear from it wasn't day one. It wasn't the first day that he was on the ground in Lincoln last November, but I believe it was December 17th when Dylan Raiola, we're just about a year removed from Dylan Raiola decommitting from Ohio State. And it was a Saturday morning, and Matt Rhule tweeted out a GIF of the Undertaker getting up off the mat. And that was evident of how he felt, what he felt about Nebraska's position in the Dylan Raiola sweepstakes. He's been all in from the beginning. They sent 9 assistant coaches to see Dylan at Pinnacle High School in Phoenix before Dylan had ever taken a class at that school last year on the final day that coaches were allowed to go on the road in January of the contact period. On the first day, Rhule was there himself, checking out the school, sticking the boombox on the edge of the grass. Remember the boombox? That was all about Dylan Raiola. So this is the direction that they wanted to take this thing, and there is a big risk, but the reward is worth the risk if they get this thing to work out. If he's the player that people believe he is, that Matt Rhule believes he is, then it's a risk worth taking.
Well, look at the other guys of this magnitude that we've seen in the recent years of college football. Guys that were rated this highly coming out of high school. Guys that are this can't-miss top quarterback prospect in the country. Think back to Clemson with Trevor Lawrence. You had Kelly Bryant there, the presumptive starting quarterback. Trevor Lawrence comes in, wins that starting job. Kelly Bryant's in the portal before week 4 of the season. He's out. You have Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma. has that starting job, and then whenever the Red River rivalry comes to town, Caleb Williams comes into that game, leads a comeback, and that's his job now. I mean, you see it across college football. Tua with Alabama. You have Jalen Hurts, who's one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Tua comes in the college football playoff semifinal, wins that football game. That is his job, and Jalen Hurts is out the door. It happens in college football with guys of this magnitude. Whenever you get a quarterback this good, it is hard to be that other guy in the room because the fans are calling for it. You see the natural talent, and once those types of guys get on the field, assuming they are what they are projected to be, you don't get them off the field very often.
Well, and it's a different era, though, of preparation for high school quarterbacks. You know, back in the day, you did not have high schools with the strength and conditioning programs. It was always a huge step up to go from your high school universal set and maybe one bar and a couple of plates to going to college and then getting adapted into the Boyd Epley et al. System, right? You didn't have players who were playing football in January, February, March, April, May, and in summer camps and 7-on-7 leagues and doing all the travel things to where they become specialists, which I don't agree with, by the way. But now you have high school quarterbacks, especially in elite areas, in down south, Texas, wherever, where you are being manufactured and you are being tooled into becoming a refined quarterback by the time you step on campus. And oftentimes those better quarterbacks in college are already opting to move on to the NFL or whatever, hitting a transfer portal, so those jobs are open. The high school senior quarterback at the elite level is not the same one that it was just 10 years ago.
There's not just one Todd Marinovich anymore, right?
Yeah, right.
Or Marv, you mean?
Marv the father.
I don't know if that's a name that we should invoke in this discussion.
Ever. Didn't work out well for Marv. Really didn't work out well for Junior.
I mean, I'm just speaking generally, though, to high school quarterback preparation now in the country. These guys, as Bill kind of lays out, they're born and bred to be high school quarterbacks. They show that talent early on, especially in the football hotbeds. Son, you're a quarterback, and son, we're going to make you the best quarterback you can be.
I don't want to say, because this is getting too far down the road, and I don't want to say that Dylan Raiola, no matter where he goes to school, is the next coming of Caleb Williams or Trevor Lawrence, because, those guys are at the very top of college football, and the projection is that Dylan's going to get to that place, but he's still got hurdles to clear to get there. But I would go out on this is not going out on a limb. I would say, based on what I know about him, about Raiola, that there's not a quarterback who has come into college with the type of preparation that Raiola has received since maybe Kyler Murray. And, Kyler Murray was doing it more like by playing 5A large class football in Allen, Texas as a freshman. Maybe he was a sophomore. I think he was starting as a freshman at the highest level. I mean, he's the guy when you talk to people in Texas, which, arguably, maybe inarguably is the best high school football in the country, where they say they've not seen a player like him. So I would not put anyone's training and readiness ahead of what Kyler Murray had when he went to Texas A&M and then on to Oklahoma. But there are very few, if any, players who've had the kind of exposure to the training that Dylan Raiola has received, whether it's from the work that he's done with these former NFL quarterbacks that his dad played with, whether it's the 3D QB training that he got in Los Angeles when they lived in Arizona and they would drive out there a couple of times a month. I mean, this is like the Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford school of quarterback teaching, or rubbing elbows with Joe Burrow when he went on a visit to Ohio State, or meeting Patrick Mahomes on a random workout in Texas that he was able to arrange when he was in Texas. There's this guru, Jeff Christensen, who is the quarterback's coach of Mahomes, that Raiola is connected with. This has sprung up in the last few months since he moved to Georgia. So I don't know much more about that. It'll be something that we'll have to look into if in fact Raiola signs with Nebraska. So has anybody ever had that kind of exposure to high-level training?
The only one I can think of is, again, going back to the comparison that I think that they will have for years to come, and that is Arch Manning. I mean, he was born into the first family of football, and by all accounts has been, well brought up in many areas to be able to handle the pressure that he did through his recruiting and to go to Texas and understand the situation there and grow. But, you think about everything that he had around him with the resources, the pedigree, the physical skills, absolutely prepared. And I think that there's probably a very similar way to address that with Dylan Raiola.
I guess could you go back to Peyton Manning as well as being a guy that had this level of preparation back in his youth?
But I'm talking generationally, yeah.
Yeah, if Quinn Ewers moves on to the NFL and Arch takes over and Dylan Raiola comes into Nebraska and starts as a true freshman, it'll be fascinating to watch their trajectories and their careers. And now Arch is going to have better talent around him as a player who's coming into a college football playoff team, a top 5 team. But just from their own quarterback development, what you can see watching these guys Saturday after Saturday, it'll be fascinating to watch these two and quite a case study in what we're talking about here. Can you construct a quarterback from age 12 or 13 on, and they have to have the physical talent, the physical tools, and both of these two seemingly have that, which is why they're elite. It's just why you just can't take somebody off the street and say, okay, I'm going to give you the top training and you're going to go become a 5-star, future NFL quarterback. These guys have got the gene pool, they've got the skills and the training. So they're the perfect ones to chart. So we may get that opportunity here in 24, 25 and beyond.
It's the Average Joe Sports Show. Check us out. Subscribe on YouTube. The AJ Sports Show is what you type in and look up. Also on Twitter, the AJ Sports Pod. Mitch Sherman, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. We're talking Dylan Raiola's visit this weekend for Nebraska, signing day next week, and the quarterback merry-go-round that's been this week for Nebraska football. When it comes to Nebraska's offense and play calling and setup, let's go here for a moment. It would be incredible for any offensive coordinator to get a 5-star quarterback. And a 5-star quarterback in Dylan Raiola, we've outlined the prep work that he's put in to be a viable option for an offense moving forward. But as we look at Nebraska's duties on staff, the topic of quarterback coach is where I want to go next. And Mitch, get your thoughts on if that is something that we could be listening for as well next week or beyond to kind of make this offense a little more complete.
Yeah, and it could be a January thing. I still think it's going to happen, and I didn't expect that we would be at December 15th and have it done. So it's not a surprise right now that there's been nothing announced, that there have been no departures from the Nebraska staff. In fact, I think the opposite holds true. If we had already learned about something, I would have been a little surprised. Sometimes, and this is not always the best for the players who were incoming, but a lot of times these announcements are withheld until after signing day. You don't want to shake things up too much, unintentionally lose a commit, something like that. By making a staff change, unless it's imminent, unless someone's going to become a head coach, and obviously that's got to get done when it gets done. Position coaches are a little bit of a different situation. So I could see this going into January, especially if Nebraska's going to dip back into the NFL coaching pool to find someone to coach quarterbacks. And we don't know with any great deal of certainty that there will be a new quarterbacks coach. I suspect that, and Matt Rhule didn't shoot down the possibility when he was asked the question in the week after the regular season ended. So yeah, I think it's a real thing. As far as who it's going to be, don't know. There's some names floating around out there, but not a whole lot of evidence that is ironclad pointing to anybody. But with Matt Rhule, you can always start by looking at the people that he's connected with, and that's how he built a lot of his staff.
No doubt Nebraska fans are looking at the coaching staffs of colleges around the country and breaking down who is quarterback coaches and who might be ready to move on. If any fan base in the country is doing that, again, it's the champions of the offseason, and that's why Nebraska is number one.
Well, let's get back to how we started off this conversation. How does this strike you? Casey Thompson, quarterbacks coach. Huh?
That seems a little early, but Casey Thompson's in town. Casey Thompson is...
Is that why they're building a couple of more Caseys in Lincoln?
Possibly.
That's a headline.
Possibly, but let's dive into Casey Thompson. Let's answer this.
Figured it out.
It's that NIL money, baby.
Casey's got a 7th year, doesn't he, if he wants it to play?
He does.
He might be too old, though. Oh, he's 25. Okay, I might be older than that.
So he's older than Garrett McGuire.
Casey's working on his doctorate. He actually could be. Casey got his master's a year ago. And, hey, huge credit to him. I remember asking him about that at a press conference last November, probably the week before the Iowa game, about getting his master's degree. And I think it was like the happiest answer that I saw from Casey Thompson. You know, it beat all of the times that he got asked to talk about his touchdown throws or whatever it was that was happening that was positive through his season as the starter in Lincoln. And he talked about the business that he wants to open, what he wants to do with his degree. He had a master's in hand last year when he hit the portal for the second time and went to Florida Atlantic. And that was his 6th season as a 24-year-old. And he tore his ACL early in the season, didn't play 4 games. And he's already received the waiver to play a 7th season if that's something that he wants to do at age 25. He'll be 26 during the season next year. I mean, he's got like 5 months on Garrett McGuire. He's older than Nebraska's wide receivers coach. So
he's older than me.
Okay, here's the trivia question. Who was the last college football player to play with his doctorate in hand?
I don't know.
That was Pat Tyrants.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Pat, little linebacker, him and Petco. Thank you.
I mean, certainly Rob Zadisky had his doctorate at like 21, right? I mean,
like the oldest college football player I remember is Brandon Whedon, that Oklahoma State quarterback, but I don't think he had his doctorate because he went and played minor league baseball for
Who was the guy that was 100 years old for Florida State in the early 2000s?
Winky.
Yeah, Winky, the Heisman winner.
Again, not a doctor.
Hey, can you imagine that? Casey Thompson's working on his PhD. He comes back to Nebraska. Sports media and communications major, by the I don't know.
Is it not amazing,
Casey
though,
will be tenured.
that the reception of Nebraska fans, just from rumors last night of maybe Casey's going to be coming back to Nebraska.
Well,
is there a guy that's more popular after only 1 year in Lincoln? I mean, Bubba Starling? Like, he wasn't even in town for a full year, but I think Bubba Starling was pretty generally liked for a guy that was only here for a cup of coffee. And Casey got his
literally
one
a cup of coffee. Signing day.
Casey had his one season, but that guy is just so generally popular around here because of, like, the thing Mitch laid out. Like, a generally likable guy. He's more excited to talk about his schooling whenever he gets in the post-game press conference after Iowa than he is about the football game. Like, Casey Thompson just so generally liked within the city of Lincoln.
Casey Thompson, if the worlds had collided in a different way, like if the universe was structured different and the timing had worked out, I think he would have been the perfect quarterback for Matt Rhule because Casey is a tremendous communicator. Like listening to a Scott Frost press conference on a Monday and then a Casey Thompson press conference on a Tuesday. I mean, Frost is kind of from the Belichick school of press conferences where he wants to give you about the least amount possible. Like we're on to the Buckeyes, that kind of a thing.
It's on to the Jets.
Yeah. Casey would sit and talk. I mean, much like Matt Rhule, where just enjoyed talking about football. Nebraska's had some great quarterbacks in front of the microphone over the years, from Zach Taylor to Tommy Armstrong, Adrian Martinez. Nobody commanded that mic like Casey Thompson. He was great. Just a dream interview. And Rhule, has some of that as a coach. Loves to talk. And we saw him on the Pat McAfee show this week. It was supposed to be a 12-minute interview, and it went 45 minutes.
Another reason why Nebraska dominates the offseason.
Right. So I did reach out this morning to Nebraska to see if basically the question was, should I be paying attention to the fact that Casey Thompson was in town this week? And I did not get a resounding yes. I didn't get a resounding no, but I don't think, at least right now with what I've gathered, I don't believe that like something is in the works where he's going to come back as a 7th-year senior and be a mentor for Dylan Raiola. It all sounds really nice, and it would probably be great. But it has to be something that Casey Thompson would want to do. If you're that committed to football that you want to play a 7th year when you've had your master's for a full season, a full year, like almost 2 years by the time he would take a snap in 2024. Are you okay with just being the backup and being a depth guy and being there to help the true freshman star? I don't know. I think he probably wants to play football.
Mitch, have you been paying attention to the last 72 hours of Nebraska football? And as the quarterback world turns, I would think that maybe that's entirely possible that something wacky like that might happen. Who would have thought we would be talking about Dylan Raiola again? And now Casey Thompson's in town.
And also, with how wacky this week has been for Nebraska media, with all the twists and turns this has taken, somebody in Nebraska athletic department just blanket no. Anytime someone asks you a question, it's a no.
Malik Murphy's in the transfer portal.
I think that'd be if you could sell it to him if he wants to.
No chance. Malik Murphy? Or are you talking Casey Thompson?
Casey Thompson.
Okay, I thought you were talking Malik Murphy here, and I went
because there was a lot of remorse with losing Casey Thompson to the portal, and what Nebraska's offense turned out to be versus what it maybe could have been with Casey throwing the football around.
So you're saying that Jeff Sims is going to go to Florida Atlantic?
No, I'm not saying
Casey.
He might. Mitch is like, hold on.
It seems like a logical fit.
Yeah. And it fits the week.
I don't know that Casey never expressed an interest in my memory in talking to him about wanting to go into coaching. And because he's such a good communicator and studies the game of football the way that he does, I think people think, yeah, he could be a coach, and he probably would be a good coach. But Casey's, I think, has some business ideas that he wants to start. And had talked about it involves fitness, and he wanted to get started in Oklahoma and like take this thing nationally and globally. He's got big ideas, so that may not involve being a student assistant at Nebraska at age 26.
And he'd be good on the mic. But if he wanted to get into TV and broadcasting and do his business, it would be a very good move for him. But I agree with you. He's a great communicator.
But now that I think about it, the most exciting part here to me with this is Nebraska and Florida Atlantic could pull off the first trade in college football history. Casey Thompson for Jeff Sims and a future 7th-round pick? Who says no?
To be named later.
Yeah. A future February signee.
That happens weekly in the SEC, doesn't it? Like great coaches, quarterbacks.
Mitch, want to get your thoughts, and just obviously Raiola, the main target this weekend with his official visit. Nebraska, to your point, needs to close that. Overall, though, as we wind down another pod, thoughts on signing day for Nebraska. The numbers crunch very real. You got another commit from Vegas last night that's walking on, but Nebraska's done pretty well with the high school recruits, and there's still time left for some portal either additions or subtractions.
And just as a quick follow-up to that, Mitch, Jackson Lee, is that his name? Very quietly leaving the class last night.
D lineman from the Dallas area.
Set off my alarm bells just slightly in terms of what's going on behind the scenes. I don't have any insight there, but that was a weird development.
You can go conspiracy theory and say that he's freeing up a spot for somebody. I don't necessarily see it that way, because if they were over by one and they dropped one, then maybe you expect they're going to add somebody at that position. I think they're just having to reevaluate things as they get closer to signing day. You can't kick guys off a scholarship when they're in the program. Well, Nebraska doesn't want to do that. There are programs that do that send guys packing. But if someone's not a fit for what you want to do before signing day, then it's, as painful as it can be for a Jackson Lee, or, we're talking about Danny Kaelin. Now, Danny Kaelin has a spot if he wants it, but if it's in his best interest to not sign, then it's probably better that he just not sign and then have to spend a year here and use your one-time transfer. At least it was a one-time transfer. Now, apparently there's unlimited transfers because of this temporary restraining order, at least until December 27th. But the point being, they're going to shave some fat from this class, and that's going to happen up until signing day. How much they have to get rid of probably depends on what they might be able to add. Some of that depends on Dylan Raiola, and if he could bring along maybe a player or two who visited with him on that weekend back in March. Remember, like the biggest recruiting weekend in Nebraska football history, that basically netted Carter Nelson, and I think the Bellevue West receivers were there at that time. And then all of the 4- and 5-star guys, Brandon Baker from Mater Dei in California. You had Ryan Wingo, the receiver from St. Louis, 5-star, who's committed to Missouri, was in that weekend. All of the Raiola, all of those guys ended up being dispersing across the country. Like, it was a fun weekend in Lincoln to come in and hang out. Is there somebody from that Frazier, the running back with Baker at Mater Dei? Is there somebody from that class who liked what they saw with Nebraska and then just chose to go a different direction because the Huskers just didn't have the star power? They didn't have a Dylan Raiola who could somehow end up back in that class. If that's the case, then that, I think, is related to something like Jackson Lee or J.D. Crisp leaving the program here in recent days. Ruggeroli is an interesting one, and I think that situation is fluid. Some mixed messaging, I guess, is what I would say, in whether he's coming as a preferred walk-on with NIL opportunities or as a scholarship guy. I talked to him and it sounded like scholarship. And then after the commitment came out, it sounded more like preferred walk-on. Maybe he comes as a preferred walk-on, but depending on who goes into the portal or who leaves after spring practice, by the time he attends his first class at Nebraska, he's on football scholarship. We'll see. There are others, I think, in the program and in the recruiting class who are also somewhat fluid at this moment.
Guys, going to shift and wrap with volleyball as we talk now, a few hours away from the Final Four. Nebraska Pitt, incredible run. Nebraska vying for a third title in 9 years. All Coach John Cook does is go to Final Fours and hang banners. Nebraska Pitt, Bill, tough matchup, but a doable matchup. This team doesn't play like their youth.
I think Nebraska got a good tune-up for Pittsburgh in their last match against Arkansas. That was a scrappy, fast, quick team, and I think that got Nebraska's attention. Pittsburgh, I watched their match against Louisville. They are very, very good. They're what Louisville was a year ago. Louisville making it to the national championship match and then falling. I think it's a very difficult, complex match that Nebraska has with Pitt. Winnable. I think winnable because Nebraska has adapted so well to the various styles of play that they've had to this year. Sometimes they've fallen behind and had to overcome that. I think that they match up well with Pitt in terms of all that experience. I think this is no secret. The big threat for Nebraska is Wisconsin. I think Nebraska fans are probably all Texas fans tonight, hoping that Texas pulls off an upset.
For the first time ever.
Wisconsin is just so big. They're just so big.
Before said.
and behind that big front line of Wisconsin, they have the only, I think, libero in the country. Although Pitt's got a pretty good one that can match Rodriguez. That's why I think Wisconsin's going to be very difficult to beat. I do think, as I said back in the regular season, Nebraska is the best team. Wisconsin's the better team. Nebraska, the chemistry, watching them all season long has just been a wonderful story. And they're what the whole team concept is. But on the floor, I think Wisconsin's better.
Yeah, congrats to John Cook on being named the National Coach of the Year, to Lexi Rodriguez and Merritt Beeson on first-team All-American, and two of Nebraska's freshmen, Bergen Riley and Harper Murray, on the second and third team. So the future's bright because they're all back. All of those players I mentioned are back next year. And no matter what happens this week in Tampa, this is going to go down as maybe the most memorable season in Nebraska volleyball history. Unless they win a national championship, when you've got 5 in the trophy case, I think you have to win another one to call it the best season. in Nebraska volleyball history. There was an undefeated season that was mixed in there in 2000 in Cook's first year. But there's never been a season that's been like this as far as what they've done in impacting the sport and in just creating a legacy for Nebraska volleyball. You know, of course, with the stadium match being the catalyst for that, but then the way that this team has been received on the road, everywhere they've gone, all the way to Tampa. You saw the video that Nebraska posted when the Huskers landed on Tuesday in Florida, and there were all kinds of fans there waiting for them. I think in these Final Four matches or match, if it's just one that Nebraska plays, the fan support is going to be pretty incredible to see. So they've taken their brand to another level, and that will be the legacy of this team, no matter what happens this weekend.
And it feels to me, not knowing the result between Nebraska and Pitt, or not knowing the result between Wisconsin and Texas, that the only fitting way for this season to end will be Wisconsin and Nebraska battling it out. They're 1-1 against each other. They feel like the two best teams in the country all season long. It feels to me like that's the only fitting way for this season to end. And maybe Texas or Pitt plays spoiler here this weekend. But I feel like those two teams battling it out, battling for, getting that second win and proving who the best team is the way that this season should. And I hope that's the way this season ends. I know Husker fans are calling they want Texas. They think that's a better matchup. I think Wisconsin, that match against Nebraska, if that's the national title game, will be the more meaningful match for both of these teams, and will make for a more meaningful national title game. And that's what I hope for.
ABC is hoping for that too.
Yes, for sure. And we'll see if Nebraska can cap it off. Well put, fellas, on just the magnitude of this season. Well put on the magnitude of five-star quarterback Dylan Raiola and his official visit this weekend as Nebraska's pursuit to kind of upgrade their quarterback room. And we'll keep you posted with more Average Joe. Again, subscribe to us on Twitter, the AJ Sports Pod, or follow us on Twitter. Subscribe on YouTube, the AJ Sports Show. Mitch Sherman, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Back at you next time. Spotify and iTunes, where you can also catch the audio portion. Talk to you next time.